And it's funny, I ran into somebody I knew.
Oh, from Sedona?
No, from LA. He's on a trip, and he's camping there. So we got to meet. That's why we thought we might be late, because we were sitting there talking.
That is very cool.
Yeah, it was. I hadn't seen him, since before the pandemic. Square dancing friend of mine.
Just a total fluke that you saw him at the.
Well, I knew he was there on Tuesday. Then I gave him a call. I said, "How long are you there for?" And he said, "Till tomorrow." So I said, "No, maybe we can meet up," and we did.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought you just ran into them at the Grand Canyon, which those kind of things can happen at a place like the Grand Canyon, right?
Yeah, so that's true.
When you're at a place that is a destination. Like I remember I ran into someone. I was in Egypt long time ago. It's the only time I ever went to Egypt. At the pyramid, I was at the pyramids, and I ran into somebody at the pyramids, and you're like, that's crazy, right? Someone from LA, but you're at the pyramids. It's like running into someone. Disney. Yeah, I know. It is kind of weird that when you travel that far away from, and I'm telling you, that was literally 33 years ago. But
wow.
But you never forget those kind of things, because it's like, it just shows you that the world is so big and so vast, and
a small world after all.
But exactly.
It is. We met a couple in the south of France. They were riding bikes through France, and we were traveling in a van with four other people. And we bumped into this couple from LA riding their bikes.
That's crazy.
Well, yesterday at lunch, yesterday at lunch, I talked to everybody, and I was talking to this couple that was table next to us, and they were from Canyon Country.
That's
it's a
pretty
small world. You're right.
Yeah.
Yep. And it is it's just good to obviously get out and travel and be able to get back to.
But Arizona is wide open.
Really?
Yes. Some places still make you wear a mask. When you're in the Navajo country, you have to wear a mask. But most places, it says if you're vaccinated, you don't need a mask.
In the store. Wow.
David and Cheryl, but they're completely open.
Yeah.
In Texas.
I guess we're about 3 weeks away, but but I will tell you, I'll be in Arizona just for the day. Literally, I'm coming right back. And Tracy's there right now for work, and I'll be there on the 9th just for the day in Arizona. Yeah, she's there just tonight. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what we're supposed to go to England in July.
Yeah, that's what I was talking to Tracy about that the other night. That's what she was saying.
And we'll see what happens.
Now, are her parents going to be able to come out here? They're supposedly no.
They were supposed to come out next week.
Right, that's what she said.
For Dina's graduation, and that got canceled, so they can't come out. They're not able to.
Yeah, she didn't think they were going to be able to.
Yeah, it's a shame. What can I say? I mean, it is. They don't have permit. I mean, like, it could change next week, but right now they don't have permission. I mean, look, people are doing it. People are doing it. They are traveling, but you're not.
But how is England doing?
England is doing pretty good for Europe. Good. England is one of the top vaccinated, but they don't have permission yet for people from England to travel for vacation.
You know what? We were walking around the Grand Canyon, and we heard people from France, I think Italy, Germany.
Wow. I think what's happening is people, like, they're being told not to travel yet. And maybe, again, people who are younger, people who are whatever, they're not worried about it, or they don't, like, her parents will not break a rule. So they're not going to go against, they're not going to go against the rule. So they won't break it.
Right.
So, what can I tell you? I mean, it's they're not going to do it. We had a
Now, the
great
only
meeting.
thing out here that's in Arizona that's closed up really are fast food restaurants. You still have to go through the drive-through. You can't go in.
Well, the worst Starbucks I've ever went to was in Sedona.
Oh,
Why?
yeah, yeah.
Oh my
Why?
God. We actually complained to corporate. It was so bad. But you know what, Mike, you sent me a message about what the app was, and then I realized I didn't write it down. So I
Oh, I
apologize.
can tell you real quick. It's called Hebrew Calendar, just
Oh,
like
okay.
that.
Thank you.
That
I'll
easy.
put it,
Yeah.
I'll do it right now. And
Yep.
Rabbi Mark,
Yep.
I want to send you a petition that was passed in several areas at UTLA that is so anti-Semitic. It is so disgusting. It is so upsetting. And I don't know how many educators we have in our temple group, or if anybody is even part of LAUSD, but they really need to get on to the president of UTLA because it is absolutely disgusting.
What's going on, Sandy?
Sandy, it passed in San Francisco today.
Oh my God, the same motion.
Yep. Why don't you tell people what it said?
Yeah, what is it, Sandy?
Okay, hold on. I need to pull it up. So just give me a second, please.
Sure.
Ugh. I mean, not one mention though of any bombs from into Israel.
I know.
Not
Here,
one.
if you do you have the file? I'll let you share it if you want.
Oh yeah, let's
Can you bring
see.
it up can you bring it up on your
I
computer?
think I can bring it up on my phone, on my email, maybe. Share screen.
I'll let people see it because I do want you to see it with your own eyes. I will show you while Sandy's looking for that. I'm going to show you what.
Oh, but I don't have my email here, I don't think.
Oh, by the way, did everyone see this video today that got, I think they put it up on some news channels. This wonderful video.
You know what? I don't have my email up. Like, let me get my email up. Hold on.
I just wanted to show you guys.
I might figure out how to do what I'm doing. We probably could have read it, but I'll try.
Hold on a second. I'm trying to show. I guess it was through Twitter. I don't know. I can't show it right now. It was a video of Hamas leader holding up a little kid with a gun.
Jeez.
To show their victory rally in Gaza. So yeah. Anyways, it doesn't, it's like I told people before, if you want to understand exactly why this was why no one should have backed off on holding Hamas responsible and what's really going on here, is I would have told you exactly this was going to happen, which is that they were going to claim victory in this. And that by itself, claiming victory while you're claiming to be a victim at the same time at the end, when what happened is what they wanted to have happen, which is that innocent people died so that they could then claim to be victims. That is in itself a cult of death and is a complete indication that there is literally no moral justification for that, for what Hamas did, for the sacrifice of people. And it's not just a terror organization, it is a death cult. It is literally a cult that is no different than the people at Jonestown who drank Kool-Aid or Heaven's Gate people. This is a death cult that literally is responsible for children dying, no different than this. And actually, you can make the argument more violently and more brutally because they're showing it and they're displaying it. And on top of it, the leaders are not dying. At least Jim Jones and the rest of these crazy people killed themselves. Right. These people perpetuated and have been perpetuated now for a couple of generations. So this is horrific.
I think it's up. Can you see it?
We see it, Sandy.
Here. Here.
Okay. So
scroll through.
Okay.
Now, I will tell you that picture was not the protest rally for BDS. This was the strike.
It was the strike rally,
strike
definitely
last year.
picture.
But
Yeah, definitely.
Whatever.
Okay, just tell me when you want me to move down, okay?
Well, so here's what it says. This is the resolution. Moved. UTLA express our solidarity with the Palestinian people and call for Israel to end the bombardment of Gaza and stop displacement at Sheikh Jarrah. Again, nothing for Hamas to stop. Further moved that UTLA calls on the administration of U.S. President Joe Biden to stop aid to Israel. Further moved that UTLA endorse the international campaign for boycotts, divestment, and sanctions, BDS, against apartheid.
Wow.
That's no surprise.
If I had kids, they'd be right out of their school. I would never send my kids to that school.
This is every school.
I totally agree.
This is every school in Los Angeles.
Yes.
This is
Well,
I'd self-teach them. There's no way I would send my kid to that school.
What happened was, we didn't know about it in Valley West area at the area meeting because Bruce Newborn is Jewish and he's the area chair. So it wasn't sent to us. The area chair for Valley East, Scott Mandel, is also Jewish. It wasn't sent there, but it went to other areas and passed at these area meetings, I think 3 out of 4. Yep. West rejected it.
Yeah, they bypassed, they knew what would happen. And so they bypassed any place that the teachers were predominantly Jewish or weren't going to allow it. So it was areas like South Bay, the South Bay area, Watts, East LA, South LA.
Wow.
Do you want me to stop sharing though? Now?
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, I'm already sick.
I'll stop.
I'm already sick. And
I'm sick too. I can't even, I mean, one of my friends said, because I've been active as a retiree too. And I'm very, she said, how in the hell can you belong to them anymore?
So you were just a teacher at LAUSD?
I was an educational audiologist. I have a doctorate in audiology.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry my name's up there like that. I've been on IAP meetings today. So I always have my
It's okay. It's okay, Dr. Sandy.
So here was earlier today from San Francisco. So the San Francisco teachers.
And Dennis, who was the president of San Francisco for years, is Jewish. And he's no longer the president, but this is really disgusting.
Yeah. And so therefore it be resolved that the UESF endorse the international campaign for BDS against apartheid in Israel. It was the same part.
It's ridiculous.
It was the same. It was the same. It was the same language.
Right.
It does not deal with reality.
No. Nobody even knows the history. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Sandy, why don't you elaborate on what you just said?
Well, because nobody goes back to the time that Britain made these agreements.
Oh, I thought you meant the history of the teachers union, which was started by Jews. And as you can see,
but you know what? The teachers union, Randy Weingarten's Jewish. She's married to a rabbi. Her wife is a rabbi.
I understand, but she has tried to not let and again, Sandy, I don't agree with Randy Weingarten about a lot of stuff.
Me either.
She has tried to stop this from happening in the AFT, right?
Right.
What's happened is they bypassed that, and they were not part. The San Francisco teachers are not part of it. Instead, they're affiliated with the AFL-CIO, which is
that's not true. Actually, San Francisco is the same as United Teachers Los Angeles. We're dual union. We're AFT, NEA. We're dual. So we're NEA, CTA.
I'm just going to tell you what this article says, Sandy. What this article says is it's not part of the two national
AFT
unions.
and the AFL-CIO are it's really they're the same. They're the same.
Well, anyways, my point.
San Francisco's big. So Dennis was vice president of AFT, and he was the president of San Francisco's Teachers Union. I've known him for years.
Okay, well, anyways, the point
It's
is,
disgusting.
the point I was going to
It's
make,
disgusting.
it's actually,
And they're not teaching. First of all, they have no business doing this. It has thing we got a picture of was a questionnaire from one of the middle schools saying Israel bombed or Israel displaced people from their houses in what city, and it listed 4 Israeli cities. That was a history or social
Now,
studies question.
what about the schools up in Santa Clarita?
they're part of the AFT.
No, they're part of CTA.
CTA, yeah, but CTA is part of AFT, I thought.
No, CTA is NEA, National Education Association, and California Teachers Association are that alignment. And American Federation of Teachers and California Federation of Teachers are the
Okay,
other
yeah,
alignment.
okay.
So they're the NEA, CTA.
Yeah, they're part of the NEA. The NEA,
Right.
that's right.
So we're not part
And
of
the
this.
NEA is going to have their big convention in kind of the end of June, beginning of July. I'm scared that this is going to come up.
See you later. I'll go back.
Yeah, but what I was going to say is, what is crazy, right, is that, and Sandy, this is the bigger issue, that the AFL-CIO, the American Federation of Labor, was founded essentially
By Jews.
by Samuel Gompers,
Right,
a Jew.
right. I know,
So
it's insanity.
the whole union, almost everyone that can look to a union for its history, was a Jewish guy named Samuel Gompers, who was born in Britain, an Ashkenazi Jew, who was raised as an Orthodox Jew, and
Hey, Rabbi, what can we do about this? Because I'm livid right now.
I think one of the most important things, and again, it's hard, like you said, if you have a child, you have a little, not that you have any, not going to pay attention to you, but at least you say, hey, look, there's an economic cost. But the teachers union doesn't really, quite frankly, Mike, they don't care.
I think you could call the president of the teachers union and say you're going to remove yourself from the teachers union. If they have so many calls, they're not going to know that every name that's given is a member or not. They're not going to search all those records. I think that's one thing you can do.
I like Sandy's suggestion that everybody calls and says we're leaving the union over this.
Yeah. If you pass this motion, we will not pay our dues. We will remove ourselves because everything is money. But there is David Feldman grew up in Santa Clarita, and his father's Jewish. I don't know if he ever belonged to any temple or anything. And I think he was one of the writers of this motion. It's disgusting. It's so disgusting. I'm so upset over it.
No.
That's a good question, Mark.
No,
Mike.
no. I don't think I don't think our congressman can do anything other than just, again, where he stands on it. But I tell you what I would like to get our congressman to do is to censure Marjorie Taylor Greene, and to, on the other side, to make sure that people who are making comparisons to mask mandates to the Holocaust are also not given any forum either. So I think people need to work in their
But see, I've heard that even Republicans are upset with her on that.
They are, but she needs to be censured.
Yes.
She's been warned.
She needs to be shot.
McCarthy warned her back with the Jewish space laser stuff, and they let it pass. Now these people need to censure her. She's been taken off of committees. She's not allowed to be on any committees, but she needs to be censured because people on the left need to take care of their own, and people on the right need to take care of their own. And it really is incumbent on people. And this is what I said at the rally a couple of weeks ago. Everybody needs to do the right thing here. It's ridiculous. I mean, we've got Jews being beaten up, on the streets now in across the world. And this is something
everywhere
that's not this is it's very obvious that I mean, if anyone ever needed any reality check that this is flat out anti-Semitism, all you have to see is Jews being beaten up. How do people see that? And then they were attacking Ilhan Omar about her anti-Semitism, and some of her defenders are saying there's no anti-Semitism. This is anti-Zionism that Jews are calling anti-Semitism. and they're literally denying what is happening right now. Now, again, I don't want to quantify or qualify which form of anti-Semitism is more dangerous, but I will tell you the people, look,
So bad.
what Marjorie Taylor Greene
Exactly,
is doing
Joyce.
is bad. But the reality is that when Jews are being beaten up right now, those are people that are being animated and essentially being led by people like Omar and others who are calling Israel an apartheid country and have legitimized this type of this type of hatred and this type of violence. And it's happening right now. I mean, what Marjorie, yeah.
We're having services in the park next Friday. What are we going to do about security? I don't usually get nervous about these things, but
we're gonna have a couple people doing security on our end, and the sheriff's department knows about it. Now, look, the sheriff's never sent out anybody to the rally. I was a little surprised because they knew about it and it was right across the street. We didn't have any problems at all. And
right.
I will tell you that.
But it's just getting worse, though.
I know it's very scary. It's terrible to feel that you are so scared that you don't want to go to your religious services. That's where I'm at.
I will tell you that I honestly, folks, I'm not worried about. I'm not worried about it in Santa Clarita. I am worried about it in West LA and in places that are geographically.
But crazy people come everywhere.
I know.
I was going to say they can. It's an hour up the freeway.
I know, but people felt the same thing during the BLM riots over the last year that people were going to come up by bus.
Yeah.
And they were going to come up, and I told people, let's calm down, let's not overreact, because it's just not likely. Is it possible? Yes, anything is possible, folks. Anything is possible. Crazy people can get in a car and it's 45 minutes away, half hour away. I know, but the likelihood of it is very, very small.
I agree with you. It just
we are going to take precautions. I will tell you that there will be people in the park who will be there for our safety and security, and I will also tell you that I'm definitely more cognizant of it. I'm more cognizant of it for myself. On the other hand, I'm nuts because when this kind of stuff happens, I'm more likely to walk around with a yarmulke out because of this stuff. Because I literally, as anybody knows, I will immediately respond to that if I get pushed, or nobody's gonna do that to me. So I'm not saying I want it to happen. I don't want it to happen, but I will not back down if that happens to me. So I don't want it to happen, and I'm not. But man, if anybody started with me, it would be very, very.
Yeah, but if somebody has a gun, Rabbi Mark,
I listen. I know. I know the conventional wisdom is you run, but I will tell you what I've seen happen lately in America has not been people on the street that are attacking people with guns. They're attacking them and beating them up. But they're not there. It wasn't like the shooting in Pittsburgh or the shootings in. I'm going to make a generalization right now to you since it's been brought up. I did not expect to talk about it, but I'm going to make a generalization right now. And it's not maybe ever going to be always going to be the case, but up until now, folks, the violence perpetrated by the anti-Semitic violence that has been premeditated. And that has been primarily, again, using firearms, meaning guns, a fancy way of saying guns, has been perpetrated by right-wing white supremacists. Okay. The violence that we're seeing now, and the violence that we see oftentimes in mobs and with people who are on the left, tends not to be armed violence. It is mob violence, and it is generally people being beaten. And it's generally not premeditated, to the extent that somebody didn't get in a car, map quest out where the synagogue was, and then show up there.
The guy who was arrested didn't live anywhere near where he beat up those people.
I understand, but they were walking with a group of people. When you're walking down the street and looking for people with yarmulkes on, I'm not saying one's better or worse. I'm saying what has been the characteristic of this violence, which I pay attention to. This is what happens. These are people that are walking around in mobs, and they are attacking people that they think are Jewish, that look Jewish, that are wearing a yarmulke, whatever they think. And they've done it in Europe. They've done it here in America. They're doing it primarily in more urban settings, closer to areas where these people are living. The idea of roving left-wing gangs that are walking around Santa Clarita beating up Jews is not likely. That's not impossible, but highly unlikely. But somebody coming out with a gun saying, hey, I'm coming up to shoot up a synagogue, yes, that is more likely to be a right-wing.
Now, can we get back to Bible Torah study?
Absolutely.
Mike, I just say one other
Mike,
thing.
I didn't bring this up.
I did. I'm sorry.
It's all Dr. Sandy's fault.
Mike did. No, you did too, Mike. So
Yeah,
you brought this up too.
May I just say one other thing
Yes.
that's a little more positive?
Yes.
Our
please.
state senator, Scott Wilk, was honored by the California Retired Teachers Association at their
Yay.
convention.
And what
Just
did he
thought
do?
I'd throw in a little positive there.
What did
I
he-
like
what
that.
did-
Thanks, Sandy.
What did he do?
Welcome. Probably was supportive of their education things, and he got their Legislator of the Year award.
That's good to see. He's done a great job of representing our district and trying to be as
Well, I'll tell you, he was very helpful to me with one issue, and the people in his office were great. So
yeah.
I have to say good things.
He's been I think he's done a great job. Unfortunately, he's terming out. He's terming out soon. So that's
You think he'll run for governor?
I do not think he's going to run for governor. Unfortunately, no,
Then it would be next.
no, because Scott won't run in a race that he can't win. He will
Okay.
not. He will not run unless he can win. Scott is way too smart, and he doesn't run. He doesn't run just to make a statement. He runs because he thinks he can actually win and make a difference. And so he doesn't run just because he wants people to pay attention to him, because he wants to sell a book, because he actually believes in his job as a legislator, as a politician, which is a great thing. And we can transition into that from there into leadership, because we're going to actually see Moses. Well, we've seen him be a good leader. Today, we kind of see him having some problems. And I say that because we've also been studying it in the Tuesday class, because we've been looking at the 10 Commandments and the anger that he has in that scene, and also the way he defends. He, on one hand, and in the Bible, it tells us he defended Israel, and then at the same time, he gets angry at Israel. In this Torah portion, he really does seem to have lost it. And it's interesting because this is still at Mount Sinai. This is still before they set out on their journey, kind of, or as they're starting to start this out. Let me put it that way. As they set out from their journey, this is still early in the journey. This isn't at the end of the journey when you could say, well, yeah, he's done. Now he's done. And again, they've been traveling for over a year. They've been out of Egypt for over a year, but let's take a look. So we begin this week in Beha'alotcha, which is not the first sentence. It's not even the first 5 words of the second sentence, the second verse. It's right here in the middle, Beha'alotcha, which means when you mount, or when you rise, when you go up, like the word from Aliyah, when you go up. So it says, the Lord spoke to Moses saying, speak to Aaron and say to him, when you mount the lamps, let the 7 lamps give light at the front of the lampstand. And Aaron did so. He mounted the lamps at the front of the lampstand as the Lord had commanded Moses. Now, this is how the lampstand was made. And so this is the description of the menorah. This is the description of the candelabra, the lamps that they had. So we read about it in Leviticus. We read about it even in Exodus. And now we have another description of it. And again, it's the first chapter, if you will, of this portion. We're going to get into other ideas, and we are moving away from the priests' laws, which we've had in the last couple of portions in Nassau, the last week, and then the week before that with Bamidbar, the beginning, we've kind of been reading about the priests. We start to move away from it, but as we move away from it, we get these interesting laws specifically about the menorah, but also a couple other things about them. And so this is the way the menorahs looked. It was hammered work of gold, hammered from base to pedal, according to the pattern that the Lord had shown Moses, so the lampstand was made. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, take the Levites from among the Israelites and cleanse them. And this is what you shall do to cleanse them. Sprinkle on them the water of purification, and let them go over their whole body with a razor and wash their clothes. Thus they shall be cleansed. This is not the Kohanim. This is the whole tribe of the Levites. So it doesn't say the priests. It says the Levites. Let them take a bull of the herd, and with it a meal offering of choice flour with oil mixed in. And you shall take a second bull of the herd for a sin offering. You shall bring the Levites forward before the tent of meeting, assemble the whole Israelite community, and bring the Levites forward before the Lord, and let the Israelites lay their hands upon the Levites. And let Aaron designate the Levites before the Lord as an elevation offering from the Israelites, that they may perform the service of the Lord. And what's interesting about that is exactly what you just read in English. It says that they are an elevation offering. They are a tenufa. They are like an offering themselves from the people to God. And so they're almost like they're like a sacrifice. And the Levites have this very special responsibility of being singled out. And what happens is the people, it says, lay their hands on them. That they put their hands on them. So they designated them, and like they would with an offering, as they bring it up, or as they say a blessing over something, as they designate it to God, the priests, the Levites, are designated now.
But the game?
Yeah.
Why?
Oh, we can hear you.
Well,
The
you can turn
Levites,
it up. Are you going to watch it?
No.
hold it a second.
Do whatever you want.
The Levites shall now lay their hands upon the heads of the bull. One shall be offered to the Lord as a sin offering, and the other as a burnt offering to make expiation for the Levites. The same as the Kohanim, they're special offerings for the Levites. You shall place the Levites in attendance upon Aaron and his sons, and designate them as an elevation offering to the Lord. Same words. They are the tenufa. They are the elevation offering. Thus you shall set the Levites apart from the Israelites, and the Levites shall be mine. Thereafter, the Levites shall be qualified for the service of the tent of meeting, once you have cleansed them and designated them as an elevation offering. For they are formally assigned to me among the Israelites. I have taken them for myself in place of all the first issue of the womb, of all the firstborn Israelites. So they are literally like the sacrifice. Just like you'd offer up the Bikurim, they are Bechor. They are the first issue. They are the firstborn. They are the first, if you will, and designated to God. Because again, as we read in Leviticus, all the way at the beginning of Exodus, for every firstborn among the Israelites, man as well as beast, is mine. I consecrate him to myself at the time that I smote every firstborn in the land of Egypt. It's exactly when we read it in Exodus chapter 12. Now I take the Levites instead of every firstborn of the Israelites. And from among the Israelites, I formally assign the Levites to Aaron and his sons to perform the service for the Israelites in the tent of meeting, and to make expiation for the Israelites, so that no plague may afflict the Israelites for coming too near the sanctuary. Moses and Aaron and the whole Israelite community did with the Levites according, just as the Lord had commanded Moses in regard to the Levites, so the Israelites did with them. The Levites purified themselves and washed their clothes, and Aaron designated them as an elevation offering before the Lord, and Aaron made expiation for them to cleanse them. And so they did exactly what Moses told them to do. They washed themselves, they washed their clothes, and they shaved themselves, and they purified themselves. And now, thereafter, the Levites were qualified to perform their service in the tent of meeting under Aaron and his sons, as the Lord had commanded Moses in regards to the Levites. So they did to them. Now we're going to get, so far it's kind of been repetitious, and it's actually been repetitious from the beginning of Numbers, which we read about the Levites being kind of broken up into separate groups, right? There's 3 different cohorts. Each one of Levi's sons, Gershon, Merari, and Kohat, they're all given roles. And we heard that they are supposed to work from 30 until 50. The Lord spoke to Moses saying, this is the rule for the Levites. From 25 years of age and up, they shall participate in the workforce in the service of the tent of meeting. But at age 50, they shall retire from the workforce and they shall serve no more. So what's interesting about that? And by the way, the word
Interesting that, Rabbi, you should be retired now, right?
I am retired from the service of the Lord. Yes.
Let me ask you a question.
This is the workforce, right? Tseva ha'avodah, which the word tseva in Hebrew means today.
Oh, but you're not a Levite, are you, Rabbi?
No.
See, I am. That's why I need to be retired.
I know. You're retired. You're even more retired than me. The
That's
tseva,
right.
the tseva is the force. And that's why we use the word for tseva today. That's the word for army in Israel, the tseva. This is a work army, if you will. So it carries the idea of a workforce, which is why it says a workforce. Now, we don't usually think about that being used today. We still use the word workforce, but we don't think about it. We'll just think in the context of working, it's just, oh, it's a bunch of people that work, right? We just, oh, what's your workforce like? But the word seva in Hebrew and the word English force has a connotation of, it's a little bit like an army. It's a little bit like a group that's going off into battle. And there is that sense that when you go into work, that there's a seriousness of purpose to it, that there's a discipline to it, that it's a responsibility, that you're part of a team. All of those things have a connotation with the Levites and with the work that's being done. And quite frankly, ideally, in the work that we do today, which is that when we work with other people, that we feel like we're part of a team. That has definitely been destroyed to some extent by the rapidization that we've had in the last year of the dismantling of work teams through offices being closed. Because as much as we can create teams online, there's nothing like being on a team with people together. And so this is being destroyed. And it's very hard for people to feel part of a team when they don't meet each other. And so I don't know what the consequences are going to be, but it's very hard for people to feel like they're part of a team without having socialization. So this is an interesting piece, but I will also say, where did they get 25 years? We read 30 years. What's 25 years? They just said 2 portions ago that you're from age 30 to 50. Now it goes to 25. I mean, it's obviously a difference.
Rabbi Mark, may I ask
Yeah.
a question?
Yeah, sure.
It talks about, shaving your body hair and shaving hair.
Yeah.
But the Orthodox Jews really don't believe in shaving or even doing early haircuts and all that.
Yeah.
So when did that change?
Well, this does seem like a once in a lifetime kind of situation, which is when the Levites are first kind of deemed ready to go, that this is like the one time start over kind of thing. We read about it though with the last week with the Nazarites, that the Nazarites let their hair grow, and then when they're done with their Nazarite vows, they shave. So there are exceptions, and there are times when this is being done. But you're right. Usually, cutting hairs is seen to be somewhat of I don't know, sacrilegious is the right word, but it's definitely not norm. And that is this kind of idea that like, when do you do that? When you need to go through some kind of purification. Interestingly, kind of a sad way, I don't want to depress people, but one of the kind of things that people do for surgeries and stuff is they sometimes have to get shaved down, right? I mean, you have to for for certain kinds of surgery. And that's like one of the, like that shaving down, if you will, sometimes is kind of like one of the first ways of people kind of feeling like, not that something's wrong, but well, yeah, that, they've got to prep themselves, if you will, for the illness, and to some extent to be purified of the illness. So we have kind of a modern version of that when it comes, I think, when it comes to surgery. Again, oftentimes people don't have to completely shaved, but and obviously in the area where they're going to have the surgery, almost always to this day, people will be shaved in that area, and it's kind of uncomfortable. Sometimes it's humiliating. I mean, there's an aspect to this, Sandy, that I think that, like ideally you don't do it. And so when you do it, it's because you have to do it. And so the priests, the Levites, in this case, the Levites or Nazarites or whoever the group is that do it, it's part of their purification. But why 25 here and then 30 at the other place, right? So the answer that's usually given, I think the answer that
different authors.
Well, that would be one possibility. It doesn't necessarily look like it is, but like what Rashi says here is an interesting one. I'll show you what he says. Well, it says, first of all, years can bodily blemishes cannot disqualify them like they do in the case of the priests, interestingly. But here's what it says right here. So earlier on, right, two portions ago, in Numbers, we read from 30 years old and upwards. How are they apparently contradictory passages to be reconciled? In the following way: from 25 years and on, the Levite comes to learn the laws regulating the service. So he studies for 5 years, and at the age of 30, he may actually do the service. From here, we derive the principle that a pupil who does not see an auspicious omen, i.e. success, in his study during 5 years will never see it. So there's this kind of idea that if you have 5 years to learn, which is interesting, because obviously it's a very important thing to do, to be a priest or to be a Levite.
But wouldn't you be studying way before your 25th birthday?
One can make the argument, yeah, that they start learning as little kids, right? But there's also a difference between learning about it and then like being a company.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah,
as an apprentice, and I think that's what Rashi's talking about.
Like getting your teacher's credentials.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, it's 5 years, right? You have 5 years to go through your credentialing process. And my daughter's doing it right now, and she's luckily, she's just took her RICA test, by the way, yesterday. So hopefully she passes that. She's passed her other stuff. This is her last thing for credentialing. She wanted to finish her credentialing while she was still in school, but people have 5 years, interestingly, to do that. So it's the same thing. And if you think about it, most people, if they want to be a teacher or they want to do certain things, a lawyer, kind of, obviously doctors are a lot longer, but normally generally speaking, if you're going to graduate school for a year or two after, it's about 4 to 6 years to reach your credentials, and to do lots of jobs nowadays that you need a bachelor's degree, or in some cases need a master's. You're probably going to learn for about 5 years. So you're
yeah. My nephew should get his in about a year, he said,
for teaching.
Yeah. He's going to be a special ed teacher.
That's awesome.
That's Andrew. You knew him. You bar mitzvahed him.
I know Andrew. He's a hard worker. So I'm hoping he's definitely somebody who could add a lot to that profession. I'm excited to hear that he's still on that path. I will tell you that that we would generally say that, if you're going to be a teacher, you're going to be, probably, a minimum of 21, 22, 23 years old, which is probably a good thing. Because again, there's a certain level of maturity that teachers have to have. And, when we see teachers making bad decisions, especially with their students, generally speaking, they're on the younger side. That's not always. And I know somebody's going to say, well, it's not always the case, but generally speaking, it takes a few years for teachers.
Yeah, Rabbi, you would not recognize Andrew anymore. He's so mature. He's such a good guy.
That's great. and he is, he's definitely at an age where you could see definitely makes.
He's going to be 30 next month.
Now that makes me feel old.
Yeah.
Because I was at his bar mitzvah, and to think that that's, over 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy. Yeah. If you're 25, 30 years old, this is 25, you can start at least learning about it. 30. And again, the weird thing is, we said there's also at age of 50, you're done, at least from the priesthood or from the work that the Levites did. And again, a lot of it is because it's physical work. But here's what it says: they may assist their brother Levites at the tent of meeting by standing guard, but they shall perform no labor. Thus you shall deal with the Levites in regard to their duties. So it's not like when they're 50, they can't do anything anymore. But they're not supposed to carry stuff anymore. They're not supposed to carry, but they can, or cut stuff up, or, do the heavy lifting. But they are allowed to still stand guard. They're still allowed to, help out. They're not supposed to be carrying stuff. Look, it's not a bad idea, because I will tell you, it's right around 50, maybe a little bit younger, where I definitely noticed that my body did not recover as quickly from, lifting something or picking something up that I shouldn't have picked up. And so it kind of makes sense. I mean, it's not far gone that, when you're about 50, even if you work out and are exercising, like I've been exercising really hard for the last 7 years, pretty regularly, but still, you got to be careful. And so it is interesting that they are saying, at least for the heavy labor, you're done when you're 50. Now, this is another kind of direction that we go with this next chapter, with chapter 9. So that was really kind of about the menorah, the priests, or the Levites, sorry, not the priests, the Levites, very much like the priests, but they're not. And let's take a look. Now, the Lord spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai on the first moon of the second year following the exodus out of the land of Egypt. Let the Israelite people offer the Passover sacrifice at its set time. You shall offer it on the 14th day of the month at twilight at its set time. You shall offer it in accordance with all its rules and rites. And what's interesting about this is that this says the second year following the exodus from the land of Egypt. So what they're saying is it just happened, but yet we're still realizing now that what we've established is a tradition, that we're going to do this every year. This wasn't a one-off thing. We didn't celebrate Passover just the year we left. We started doing it. And it says, you shall offer on the 14th of this month at twilight at its set time. You shall offer it in accordance with all its rules and rites. Moses instructed the Israelites to offer the Passover sacrifice. And they offered the Passover sacrifice in the first month on the 14th day of the month at twilight in the wilderness of Sinai. Just as the Lord had commanded, so the Israelites did. And so now you have this tradition being established. Okay. By the way, the 14th day of the month at twilight, I will just make this point because some of you may have noticed that last night was the 14th, or actually the night before was the beginning. Yesterday was the 14th day of the month of Sivan. Why am I telling you that? Because it was a full moon last night.
Mhm.
And there was an eclipse. Did you know that?
Yeah.
We could see
But I
it.
didn't get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go see it.
I did.
Did you really?
Did you see it?
No, because it was behind the mountain by my house. So I
You should
waited.
have come up to our house.
I waited until 4:30. I went outside. I looked at my app. I'm like, I don't see the moon. And then I looked around and I said, oh, it's because it's behind that hill right there. I was so mad, and I don't know how far I would have had to drive in order to see it. But by the time I realized that I'm not going to see it, I stayed up all night. I mean, like I dozed a couple of times, and I was like, I got work to do. It's a perfect night for me to do it. I was so bummed out. And then I slept, maybe I got about 2 hours of sleep in, but I wanted to see that full moon eclipse. And I thought I could do it. And it is kind of like one of those, it's been a while since we've had a full moon eclipse. And I was worried that if I left and went in my car, by the time I could find a place to see it, it would already be gone. And I didn't want to drive around at 4:20. I was kind of like halfway between pajamas and being dressed. So I was also, I don't want to drive around right now. But I was really bummed out because I was like, I knew it was coming up. And then I looked at the night and I was like, oh, it's tonight. And of course it's tonight because it's the full moon. So this is the full moon of exactly 2 months ago. 2 months ago. 2 months ago was Passover.
And it's no longer the first month. What month is it though, Passover?
It's now the 7th month.
7th, that's what I thought.
Half a year away. So this month of Sivan, just a week ago, last week we celebrated, as you remember, we celebrated Shavuot, the end of the Omer period, kind of the end of Passover 50 days, that period. But then like the next full moon was last night, was like 8 weeks, and then you really do feel like we're entering summer. And as it turns out, this year, it's pretty close to the other unofficial beginning of summer, if you will, Memorial Day, Memorial Weekend coming up. So it was a full moon. 14th was yesterday, or well, the night before. But here's the problem with the Passover, or at least this Passover, 2 years out. But there were some men who were unclean by reason of a corpse and could not offer the Passover sacrifice on that day, appearing that same day before Moses and Aaron. Now, what's interesting about this, and we just had this discussion yesterday in Tuesday class, how does the Torah contain laws that do not seem to be initially given or need to be given? As we talked about, the famous version is the daughters of Tzlov that we'll read about in a few weeks, the end of Numbers, that they come to Moses and say, where do we get to inherit stuff from, right? Because our father died and there's no sons, and what's going to happen? Who gets the stuff? And so Moses has to go to God and get a decision. This is another one of those cases, except this one's not as famous because the daughters of Tzlov, for like, this is our women's empowerment, women protection, feminism, whatever. I mean, I don't say whatever, but it's I don't mean to demean it, but it is an issue that shows that Judaism tried to protect women from an early age. This one doesn't get a lot of attention because it's about a Passover ritual that most of us don't even know about, but you will see it on calendars. You'll see it on a Jewish calendar. This little new law, if you will, a law that doesn't seem to initially have been part of the laws. So I'm just going to say, because look at what happens. They couldn't do it because they had come into contact with a corpse, so they could not be there on Passover, could not offer the sacrifice. So they appeared before Moses and Aaron, and they said to them, unclean though we are by reason of a corpse, why must we be debarred from presenting the Lord's offering at its set time with the rest of the Israelites? And Moses said to them, stand by, stand by. That's what he says, stand by. Same words that we use today. Imdo, ve'eshma. Let me hear. I'll hear what instructions the Lord gives about you. So he has to go to God to get guidance for it. And the Lord spoke to Moses saying, speak to the Israelite people saying, when any of you or of your posterity who are defiled by a corpse or are on a long journey would offer a Passover sacrifice to the Lord, they shall offer it in the 2nd month on the 14th day of the moon at twilight. They shall eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs, and they shall not leave any of it over until morning. They shall not break a bone of it. They shall offer it in a strict accord with the law of the Passover sacrifice.
Wow.
And this is Pesach Sheni. We call it the second Passover. So there's nothing for us to do. If you had Passover, You don't have to have another Passover Seder. Do people have traditions on Pesach Sheni? Absolutely. Because they're like, hey, look, there's a thing in the Torah about it, but we don't do a Passover sacrifice, so we don't need to do a Passover Sheni. If somebody didn't get to celebrate Passover for a different reason, because they weren't with their family or whatever else, you can make the argument, look, there's a tradition about it. But let's face it.
Rabbi, I think you should celebrate it because I know how much you love matzah.
Passover, yeah, I need more matzah. I still have a box in the garage, so I think I have a 5-pound box in the garage.
Feed it to Ryder.
I told you, yeah, he ain't gonna eat it. I told you the one thing that these guys got stuck with at Ralph's was big boxes of matzah, the big 5.
Right.
So we know, and we bought him and we supported him. And I told Tracy, there's no way we're finishing. I think we actually had 2 sets of 5-pounders. I said, there's no way we even need one of these.
Too much salt in them.
How about too little taste? To me, there's not too much of anything. Too much with matzah is that it's too much matzah. But yes, there's too little taste, too little whatever, too little flavor. So you do a second Passover for people who didn't get it. And let's face it, it's not about the matzah. You know that. It's about the offering. It's about the sacrifice. These people, by the way, I want to point out, Mike, they don't say, we didn't get to eat matzah. They say we didn't get to prepare the Lord's offering.
I mean, because because the Bible is more about the sacrifice than what you're eating.
Yep. And I will say that when you read this and you read the Torah and you read Pesach Sheni and you read Pesach Rishon, the first Passover, the unleavened bread and bitter herbs are condiments, accompaniments to the Passover offering. The Passover offering is the centerpiece of the night.
Right, and now with us Jews, it's all about food.
Yes, making the sacrifice. It is about that offering. The fact that we've kept Passover going without a Passover sacrifice is nothing short of remarkable.
Absolutely.
The fact that we've kept it going with the condiments. It's literally like telling people, oh yeah, we used to go for Dodger dogs all the time, and everyone would go to the Dodger Stadium, would have a Dodger dog. And then you're like, yeah, but nobody knows what a dog is. No one, they actually ate dogs. No, they didn't eat dogs. They had meat. They used to eat meat. People used to eat meat. No, they didn't eat meat. And instead they had a bun with mustard on it. And they said, oh man, here's our bun with mustard on it. And you'd be like, who eats a bun with mustard? And that would be what the Passover is like for us. It is the mustard is the bitter herb. The bun is the matzah. And I stick by my analogy. It is a Dodger dog without a Dodger dog. It is literally, it is the condiment and the serving accompaniment. It is amazing that we've survived without the Dodger dog for 3,000 years or 2,000 years without this part, without the Passover sacrifice. So it is amazing that we still do it. So again, they've got to do it exactly like that. And it does say, though, if a man who is clean and not on a journey refrains from offering the Passover sacrifice, that person shall be cut off from his kin, for he did not present the Lord's offering at set time. That man shall bear his guilt. Well, let's explain that law. Pretty straightforward, though, but let me say it. You don't get to do a Passover Sheni if you just didn't get around to doing Passover. You can't say, oh yeah, I didn't do the Passover. No, you screwed up. If you didn't have a good reason for not doing it, you don't do it later. That is your problem, and you now have to suffer the consequences. Now, when a stranger who resides with you would offer a Passover sacrifice to the Lord, he must offer it in accordance with the rules of the rites of Passover. They shall be one law for you, whether stranger or citizen of the country. And that is the lesson that we read before in the Passover offering, which is that the stranger who resides with amongst you is also going to offer it. He has to do it according to the rules and rites of the way it was supposed to be done in the first place. And again, arguably, that would then be for the Pesach Sheni as well. They have to follow the rules as well, which again, we read. Look, the rabbis, commentators, Rashi, everybody has an issue with this because in the biblical period, the ger is a stranger. It is somebody who resides amongst you that is not an Israelite. The word later on means, and I will show you this so that you can see it. The word later on this is, one may think this verse implies that anyone who becomes a proselyte must keep the Passover offering rite immediately after a circumcision. Folks, where did Rashi get that this is a proselyte, a convert? Proselyte is a fancy word for proselyte. The issue is that by Rashi's period, and even by the rabbinic period, by the Talmudic period, a ger is not a stranger. It is a proselyte. It is a convert. And so by that point, it meant something different. The word meant something different. It meant no longer a resident alien, someone who lives amongst you who's not an Israelite. It meant someone who decided to become Jewish, which shows you that the words took on different meanings. And so Rashi really had.
Now, Rabbi, could this have been just a translation error way back when?
No. Every time the word ger is used, it means a stranger. It means someone who's not an Israelite.
Okay.
It means a non-Israelite person. By the rabbinic period, they recognized that there were, by the rabbinic period, or at least the early rabbinic period, they recognized that there was really two categories, what they called a ger toshav and a ger tzedek. A ger toshav is a resident alien, for the word toshav, yoshev, someone who's dwelling amongst you, someone who lives amongst you. And then a ger tzedek, which is a righteous stranger. A ger tzedek, as you can guess by the title, is someone who converted to Judaism. So by the rabbinic period, they classified them into two categories. Later on, by Rashi's period, they don't even think about the ger toshav anymore. They don't talk about the resident alien. They talk only about the convert, because the word originally meant a stranger, then it means both, and then it only means the convert. So there was a transition period where it did mean both. But why does it no longer mean both? Because if you're Rashi and you live in medieval France 1,000 years ago, around 1000, there's no resident alien amongst you, because Jews and Gentiles don't intermarry. They don't. And you don't live in a Jewish country. You live in a Christian country where the laws of the country are your laws. So who does this apply to? It only could apply to somebody who had converted to Judaism, which did happen. It didn't happen a lot. It was against the law in most Christian countries by the Middle Ages. Literally, you suffer death penalty if it comes out that you converted. If someone converted, by Rashi's period, that's the only thing it can mean. It can't mean someone who just happens to live amongst you. We now live in a time when it can mean both again. We've gone back to the rabbinic understanding where we have people who live amongst us who are not Jewish. We have spouses. We have family members who aren't Jewish. And so we say, well, what are they? Because are they a ger tzedek or are they a ger toshav? Are they somebody who lives amongst us, who follows our rules, but hasn't made the decision to convert or to become a convert? Or are they, have they decided they're ger tzedek, and then therefore they're in that category?
So Rabbi,
the reason that this is also important is not just in America, where we finally again have come back to this situation where we have to really evaluate what is a ger. It's also an issue in Israel, because if you're living in Israel and everything is shut on Passover and all the bakeries are shut on Passover, listen, you're keeping Passover even if you're not a Jew. So we now have people who are, to some extent, Israel.
Did we lose them? I think we lost the rabbi.
It froze.
It hasn't done that in so many weeks. I'm sure we all missed it. So you're doing good, Joyce?
I'm feeling very good. Is Cheryl any better yet?
She's slow to the draw. She's been up and down today, but she's having a hard time with her foot.
I'm sorry.
Go to the foot store and get a new foot.
Bunyan.
Joyce, you look great. So do you, Harvey. You look wonderful.
Harvey, you're muted.
The light flickered at their.
Did your lights flicker?
Say
No.
what?
Our lights flickered,
No. Oh, I'm in Arizona. So.
but then we lost the rabbi immediately.
Oh, real interesting.
Oh, maybe he's got a power outage.
Maybe there's a power outage out there.
Either that or the teacher union got him up.
There you go.
They're after him.
And you're not far from the rabbi, are you, Harvey?
About 5 or 6 minutes
Mm.
But no traffic.
with no traffic. Oh, there's no traffic. We're located right by Cal Arts.
Okay. And we're up by the new senior center, usually. Now we're about 10 hours away.
Yeah. Well, that's where Sharon works, at the senior center.
Oh, does she? Oh, that's what he told me. She delivers food, right?
Doesn't do it,
Meals?
but she prepares it. She gets it all ready.
Oh,
How
okay.
many today? 1,400?
We average.
Really?
average 12
No, 1,200 a day.
We're making. the
Wow.
bags.
That's great.
Wow, that's a lot. Wow.
We do 5 meals a week.
What?
You do 5 a week, right?
We do, but we serve 5 days a week.
5 days a week.
Well, we have a friend, she's homebound and they deliver to her house. And on Fridays, they send her an extra meal for the weekend or something.
Yeah, it's for the holidays and for the weekends.
Right.
Somebody, like they're getting 3 frozen free meals and bag lunches this week for Memorial Day.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's what she does.
Sorry, everybody. That was a flat out power outage. That was not a Zoom technical glitch in my house.
That's what Harvey was saying.
That's
Rabbi,
my lights.
We
My lights-
flickered.
Back.
Yeah, I'll be back. I'll be back on in a second. I'm still trying to reconnect, but that was a flat out. And the funny thing is my computer didn't go down because I'm on a laptop.
Uh-oh.
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 His phone went out now. There he goes.
There we go. So let me go. So sorry about that, but that was pretty weird. That was a flat out, but just for a second. Came
That's
to
what
know.
Harvey said, because Harvey got, same thing happened to Harvey.
Oh, did it?
Oh,
So-
we didn't lose.
The minute we had a flicker, you lost.
Yeah, well, my computer was still on, but the internet went down. So it had to reboot. Anyways, so somebody was saying something though. This is the interesting thing about converts and the fact that in the Bible, they're much closer to where we are again, which is my point is that in Israel.
Yeah, real quick though, because I know we're running a little behind. Since Rashi said what he said, so the Orthodox rabbis go with what Rashi said?
As far as
What the ger.
Yeah. So they don't. Interestingly, it's not really. It's not reflective of anything today other than
Right.
whether what is a convert going to do in participating in Passover? There's no limit. There's
You
no
gotta twist those arms of the strangers to get in and have some.
Passover anyways. Yeah, exactly. No, there's no issue. There's no issue
Oh, yeah.
for it today in the sense that they don't have to have Passover unless they've actually gone through conversion. But once they have, it's incumbent on them to have matzah, and which is again the question of why would anyone want to be Jewish? But why would anyone willingly?
It's the matzah ball soup.
Why would anybody choose this?
I don't dislike matzah as much as you do. I love
I-
avocado
most-
smeared all over it.
Most
I
people
love it.
don't hate it as much as me. I am definitely hating it. There is nothing I like better than coming to the end of a week of Passover. And by the way, I was usually I lose a couple pounds during Passover. This year I was so bad in my eating before that kind of didn't matter. Anyways, but I am, like I said, I am exercising pretty much. So at least I'm doing that. Anyways, so that is the law of Passover Sheni, and the fact that there is this loophole, not loophole, but a protection, a way of kind of making sure that you don't have to miss Passover for a whole year. So a lot of people, again, it's not, you see it on a calendar, it'll say Pesach Sheni. We've never given up the fact because it is in the Torah, but it also, the Torah doesn't seem to like account for it in the first place. It's a law that comes about as a case law, literally as things are happening.
Mhm.
So here's what it says. On the day the tabernacle was set up, the cloud covered the tabernacle, the tent of pact, and in the evening it rested over the tabernacle in the likeness of fire until morning. So again, this is the cloud by day and the fire at night, that it was over the tabernacle during that time. And specifically, not just over the tabernacle, but where did it emanate from? The ark. It came out over the ark. It was always so. The cloud covered it, appearing by fire as night. And whenever the cloud lifted from the tent, the Israelites would set out accordingly. And so whenever it lifted, they knew it was time to go. And at the spot where the cloud settled, there the Israelites would make camp. So literally it would come to a place and they would set themselves underneath it. They knew where to go with this GPS that God gave them. But it was not just GPS, it was literally like augmented reality, because they got to see where they were going based on where that cloud went. At a command of the Lord, the Israelites broke camp, and at a command of the Lord, they made camp. They remained encamped as long as the cloud stayed over the tabernacle. When the cloud lingered over the tabernacle many days, the Israelites observed the Lord's mandate and did not journey on. At such times as the cloud rested over the tabernacle for but a few days, they remained encamped at a command of the Lord and broke camp at command of the Lord. And at such times as the cloud stayed from evening until morning, they broke camp as soon as the cloud lifted in the morning. Day or night, whenever the cloud lifted, they broke camp. Whether it was 2 days or a month or a year, however long the cloud lingered over the tabernacle, the Israelites remained in camp and did not set out. Only when it lifted did they break camp. On a sign from the Lord, they made camp, and on a sign from the Lord, they broke camp. They observed the Lord's mandate at the Lord's bidding through Moses. Now, that's the end of chapter 9. It's not a really good break, because this almost continues into the next chapter without a break. The only thing you could say is it begins with another, the Lord spoke to Moses saying, but I mean, you have that sometimes in the middle of trying to see if there's one up here. The Lord spoke to Moses saying, was in verse 9. So you don't have to begin a new chapter every time you get that. But we have this, and now we get to this, which is the making of the trumpets, the Chatzot, which are Chatzot are trumpets, and how they designate it from a shofar, they're made of metal. In this case, they're made out of silver. And so these are not horns like a shofar that are from a ram's horn. These are horns that are actually made. Now, it says they shall serve you to summon the community and to set the divisions in motion. When both are blown in long blasts, the whole community shall assemble before you at the entrance of the tent of meeting. And that is the takah. This is the tekiah, takubachen, which is you shall, when they, the plural, when they blow the long blast, the tekiah, then that's time of assembly. If only, both, by the way, if both are blown. If only one is blown, the chieftains, heads of Israel's contingents shall assemble before you. So there's probably like a blast that, you can hear the first blast and then the second blast together. If there's only one, it's just the chieftains. When you sound short blasts, the divisions encamped on the east shall move forward. What is the short blast? That is teruah. Teruah. So that is the short staccato blasts. So when you hear the short blasts, winds of the east move. When you sound short blast the second time, those on the south shall move. Tekiah the second time, south moves. Thus short blasts shall be blown for setting them in motion. While to convoke the congregation, you shall blow long blasts, not short ones. So when you're bringing everybody together, you use Tekiah and not Truah. So here you see the different sounds. Now, again, we don't have the Shfarim, the intermediate blasts. We only have the long blasts and the short blasts, the Tekiah and the Truah in this part. It says, the trumpet shall be blown by Aaron's sons, the priests. They shall be for you an institution for all time throughout the ages. So it says right there, flat out, the Kohanim are the ones who blow the shofar, or the trumpets. These are the jobs of the priests to do. Now, so far, it's been to bring people together and to move people. Now we have a third reason. When you are at war in your land against an aggressor who attacks you, you shall sound short blasts on the trumpets, that you may be remembered before the Lord your God and be delivered from your enemies. And so when you're in a battle where you get attacked, you blow the short blast, the Truah. Now, what's interesting about that is that sound of like that type of noise is reminiscent in some ways of sounds that we hear when we hear sirens, certain kinds of sirens. What, of course, is so powerful about this is that Israel heard those sirens last week. So sirens went off. In some cases, people had 45 seconds, sometimes less, to get into their bunker, into their safe zone, into their safest part of their homes. And now people have apps on their phones that tell them when there's been an attack, where there's been an attack, so that even if it's not in their immediate area, they have family in another part of the country, they can see where there's been an attack. And when we had 4,000 missiles being launched at Israel over 10 days, 11 days, you can imagine it's, on average, hundreds of missiles being launched a day. So those blasts went off last week, less than a week ago. Now, they don't sound like a trumpet anymore, and they're not done by priests. They're done by the military, and we don't have things like that in America, folks. We haven't used those things for all. We had them. We had sirens that would go off in World War II. We had them in California. I remember as a kid, you'd still sometimes see the air raid sirens, down by the beach, or certain parts of LA, Hollywood. Occasionally you'd still see those. I said, oh, I remember how old I was. I asked, what was that? And they said, that was an air raid siren. They still have them. They still had them, in England. I'm sure they probably still have some in England as well. But we haven't had to worry about that kind of stuff in America for a long time. But in Israel, it's only a matter of time before they'll hear those sounds again, whether it's 6 years or 7 years or less. Since the last time it was 6-7 years, it was 2014. Are we going to get another 6 or 7 year respite? And what's going to happen the next time this happens? Because nothing came out of this that's going to end it, unfortunately. I think everybody realizes that it's just a matter of time before it happens again, before those trumpets go off again. So it's not just to alert the people, it's to get God to remember us. So that's when you go off, when you're asking people to come together, when you're telling people it's time to move, when you're going to war. And here's another, fourth thing. On your joyous occasions, your fixed festivals, and your new moon days, you shall sound the trumpets, offer your burnt offerings and your sacrifices of well-being. They shall be a reminder of you before your God. I, the Lord, am your God. So just as we blow a shofar to have God bless us and to protect us, we also have this blessing request, if you will, when we offer up sacrifices, that we blow the shofar, or excuse me, blow the trumpet, Chatzot, when we have a holiday. And again, the words there are the longer blast, the tekiah. So why do we have all this reminder or statement or whatever? We have this because here in verse 11, in the second year, on the 20th day of the second month, the cloud lifted from the tabernacle of the pact, and the Israelites set out on their journeys from the wilderness of Sinai. The cloud came to rest in the wilderness of Paran. So here, finally, on the 20th day of the second month, so again, what was roughly right around May or April, May time, the people finally took off.
And that's the second year. Am I correct in thinking that?
That's what it says, in the second year.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, it says it right there. Okay.
So this is a, this is after a year of being at Mount Sinai.
It took them a year to get to Mount Sinai?
No, it took them a year to leave Mount Sinai. It took them only about 4 weeks to get to Mount Sinai.
That's what I thought. So they were there almost 2 years then.
It's in the second year. So it's the second year. It's after the first anniversary.
Oh, okay.
They're there for a year and 20 days.
Okay, in the second year.
A year and
2 months.
2 months.
Right. Okay, now, okay, I get it.
So they finally leave that area. So it's basically, it took them, let's say, a month to get there. They're there for a year, and now they're finally taking off from there. And their journey begins. And so that those horns blow now to set these guys in motion. And when the march was to begin at the Lord's command through Moses, the first standard set out troop by troop was the division of Judah. In command of its troop was Nachshon, the son of Aminadab. And so you can see that they're led by the standard, which is a degel, a flag. And the first one to lead was the tribe of Judah. The tribe, again, the largest tribe,
Biggest.
is the Jews. We're descendants of this tribe, and we were led by Nachshon, the elder of the tribe of Judah. And then it says, and again in that cohort, right, is they're divided into 4 cohorts of 3. In the tribe of Issachar, Nethanel, son of Zuar, and in command of the tribal troop of Zebulun, Eliav, son of Chalon. Then the tabernacle would be taken apart, and the Gershonites and the Menorahs who carried the tabernacle would set out. So Judah and their cohort of Issachar and Zebulun, the first quarter, if you will, of the Israelite army set out, and then in the middle after them, not exactly in the middle, it's towards the front, is the Gershonites and the Menorahs, who have the boards, the planks, the foundation, if you will, the infrastructure. They take off with the guys who are carrying with the curtains. As you can imagine, this is a good chunk of the Levites, or it's 2/3 of the Levite tribes are in the middle, or kind of wedged in the middle. But it's not the stuff that is the most precious stuff, the ark. Well, watch what happens. The next standard set out by troop was the division of Revain. In command of its troop was Elitzur, son of Shedeur. In command of the tribal troop of Shimon, Shalumiel, son of Zurishaddai. And in the command of the tribal troop of Gad, Eliasaph, son of Deuel. So then you have the next batch. So now you have the next quarter of the troops of the tribes, right? The Reubenite group, and this group of those three tribes, they take off. And so now you have one quarter, some Levites, and then another quarter. And then after that, so almost dead set in the middle of the people, is the Kohathites. And what are they carrying? The sacred objects. They would set out, and by the time they arrived, the tabernacle would be set up. And so what's so brilliant about that, of course, is that you need to have the thing set up so that by the time that they got there, there was a place to put up the ark, right? The menorah, all the cool things that people are going to use, the altar, all those things can get set up now that you have the building set up, right? So you got to set up the building. But of course, the other thing that's brilliant about this is it's protecting those really important things, those sacred objects in the middle of the army, and the people are these things. And so they're not in the front, they're not in the back, they're like literally in the middle, because now you have these next groups of people. The next standard to set out was the division of Ephraim. In command of the troop was Elishama, son of Amihud. In command of the tribal troop of Manasseh, Gamliel, son of Bedatzur. And in the command of the tribal troop of Benjamin, Abidan, the son of Gideoni. And then, so that's the next wave, the third set. And now you don't have a wave of Levites that now fill in that gap, because we used 2/3. Now you could say, well, it should have been broken up into three. There would have been these three really great groups. You'd have had one group, right, with the foundation. The next group could have had the curtains, and then the last group would have had that. But if you had done that, first of all, it could have taken too long to set it all up. But the other issue is that it then also doesn't put the sacred objects in the middle. It would have put the sacred objects in the back, that if somebody had attacked the rear guard, then the Kohathites with their ark and everything else, it could have gotten right through. So protecting these sacred objects in the middle of it, essentially 300,000 guys in the front, and not people, 300,000 soldiers, 300,000 guys aged 20 and up in the front, 300,000 guys in the back. You're taking really good care of the ark. The ark is not going to get touched. Very well protected in the midst of, again, 300,000 people on both sides. You're not coming near the ark. No other army attacking us is going to get near our ark. So in the last section, the last quarter, the rear guard was Dan, and in command of that troop was Achiezer, son of Ammishaddai. In command of the tribal troop of Asher, Pagiel, son of Ochran. And in the tribal troop of Naphtali, Achirah, son of Enan. Such was the order march of the Israelites as they marched troop by troop. Were they attacked? Yes, they were already attacked by the Amalekites. Were they going to be attacked again? Yes, they're going to be attacked again. This is not theoretical. This is actually to protect them and to know that they are going to need to be safe and need to protect, especially the ark. They don't want anything to happen to the ark. Now we get a very interesting scene here in verse 29. Moses said to Hobab, son of Reuel the Midianite, Moses' father-in-law, we are setting out for the place of the Lord of which the Lord has said, I will give it to you. Come with us and we will be generous with you, for the Lord has promised to be generous to Israel. So here we have Yitro being called by this other name, Hobab. Is it a different author? Maybe. Of course, people say it's a nickname, all these other kinds of things. The interesting thing here is that Reuel was also one of the other names for seemingly Moses' father-in-law. When it's used before, the rabbis interpret it as, because it was used in the Torah. It's not in the Midrash. It's in the Torah. He's called Reuel. When he's called Reuel back in Exodus, the rabbis maintain that that is his Chobab's father. Yitro's father is Reuel. When they say Reuel, the daughters refer to Reuel as their father. The rabbis interpret from that we don't call our grandfathers just grandfather, we call them father. You can call your grandfather your father, even though they're not your father, they're your grandfather, we can call them father as well. So when Reuel is mentioned earlier as Chobab or Yitro, it's actually the grandfather of Tzipporah. It's not Moses's father-in-law, it's Moses's grandfather-in-law, if you will, Reuel. So Moses says to him, we're leaving Mount Sinai. And come with us, right? Because good things are going to happen to us. We're going to get land, get in the promised land. But he says, I will not go, but will return to my native land. I'm going home, Moses.
And we never hear from him again, or do we?
Nope, we don't.
I didn't think so.
Nope. And he
Good
said,
guy too.
yes. And he said, please do not leave us, inasmuch as you know where we should camp in the wilderness and can be our guide. Now, what's so weird about that is that God just told Moses, I'm your guide. You're going to follow the cloud and the fire. You're going to know exactly where to go. What do they really need him for? They don't. They've got God as their guide. They have literally the GPS of all GPSs. They have God literally leading them. They don't need to know how to get through the wilderness. Again, assumedly, Yitro, Chobab, whatever you want to call him, this dude was a Bedouin. He knew how to live in the desert. Moses grew up in the palace in Egypt. He doesn't know about the desert. And so there was a truth to it. It's not like he was making it up. He's saying, we need you. And he really didn't need him. But he was being very courteous, very respectful, and basically saying to his father-in-law, we need you.
Well, Yitro was really good to Moses too when Moses was down. I mean, he was a really good guy.
He's a good guy. He protects them. He takes care of them, takes care of the family, he reunites them with his family. Seems to be a good person all around, a hero.
And we even have a parsha with his name on it. So come on.
Parsha with the 10 Commandments. Not just the parsha that has the 10 Commandments in Exodus is named after him. And so Moses says, we need you. Come with us. He says, come with us. He says, no, I'm not going to come with you. He says, come on, we need you. And he says, if you come with us, we will extend to you the same bounty that the Lord grants us. So anything we get, you're going to get a part of it. Now here's the problem. We don't get his answer. We don't get his answer. If you read this right here, it seems like he went with them. There's something missing here, folks. Somebody took it out.
So maybe the editors didn't want us to know that he went with Moses because he wasn't Hebrew. Yeah. He wasn't Jewish.
It appears that Yitro originally demurs and says, no, I'm not coming. No, I got a place to go. And Moses says, no, you got to come with us. And assumedly the response the second time was, yeah, I'll come with you. So what's missing here, folks? Somebody excised this at some point because there was a real concern with who the Midianites were or who the Midianites ended up being. And they did not want Moses's Midianite father-in-law, and by extension, any Midianite, to have a place with us. It seems as though there was a writer who accords to the Midianites a certain level of respect through Yitro. And then later on, somebody said, you know what? Yitro's okay, but that's it. No Midianite, no descendant of, nobody can ever say they're Yitro's descendant.
But obviously Moses' wife was a Midianite.
Yeah, but we don't know what happens to Moses' own kids.
We do not.
We don't, and there does seem to be this understanding that Moses' own kids aren't good enough to really continue on the legacy. And so there is a undeniable role that Yitro plays. But the role that he plays, in a bigger picture, as a Midianite elder, at least it seems that some of the writers do not want to extend that. It is very likely, by the way, based on what we have in the Torah, that there were 100% Midianite, let me put it this way, Midianite tribes people who did in fact, and we know them, they're called the Kenites. The Bible talks about these Kenites living amongst us in the land of Canaan when we march in, that there's Kenites with us and they continue to live as a protected community within the land of Israel, and that they're Midianite. There does seem to be a problem for some people with that. By extension, again, granting anybody a piece of the land that's not an Israelite. This is an ongoing issue even in Israel today, because the Bedouin, the Israeli government tried to create a situation for the Bedouin, essentially the modern descendants of these Midianites. The Bedouin are the closest thing to Midianites that we have. Israel has tried to protect Bedouin settlements and Bedouin territory, recognizing that the Bedouin are nomadic people and don't have one place that they are going to live, have allowed them to serve in the army. The Bedouin are some of the few Arabs that regularly serve in the army, but at the same time, recognizing that there is a problem in recognizing everybody who's a Bedouin, because again, are the Bedouin Arabs or are they something different? And there are other groups like that. There's also the Circassians. Circassians are Muslim, not Arab, but Muslims who live in Israel, who are also, they're called the Cherkassi in Hebrew, but the Circassians are also, if you look them up, they are non-Jewish, actually Muslim, not Arab, but Muslim soldiers who were there during the Turkish times and have been kind of grandfathered in as Israeli citizens.
But Rabbi, I wasn't going to say it, but I'm going to say it anyways because we were talking about it at the top of the class. By these editors, assuming that they did edit out something about the Mennonites not coming into the land with us, isn't that the same as racism?
Yeah, but the issue is that there's an undeniable fact that Yitro is who he is. There's an undeniable fact that Moses respects Yitro. The question is,
there's no doubt that Yitro was a great man.
So then the question is does that recognition accord to every other Midianite? And so there does seem to be a problem in that at a certain point, the Israelites were uncomfortable with either what the Midianites had become, or again, like you said, there was a level of racism there that was preserved. That's the problem if we don't really know what the full context of it is.
Yeah, we do not know the full context.
We do know that there was a time during the time of the judges when the Midianite raiders were at war with Israel, that there were parts of the period of time before the kings, before King Saul, that Midianites were actually raiding and a problem militarily for the Israelites when they were during the time of judges. We know that. There's parts of so the secret is not really a secret, which is that the Midianites end up becoming a problem. But is it every Midianite? And because it does seem like the Midianites, it kind of depended on the tribe. And it's the same thing with the Bedouin in Israel. It really depends on the family.
Even today, you can't say every Arab is a bad person.
There's also an issue, and there was an issue. We don't think about it today. And I'm not advocating it, and I don't want anybody to say that I said this, but there was a time in American history when there were Native American tribes that people had pacts with, whether it was the Iroquois or whoever it was, and there were other tribes that early Americans were fighting against. In some cases, the British used those tribes against us. The French Indian War was fought between American colonists and French Indian tribes, and Washington was one of those commanders during the. So this did happen in America, folks. There was not a generalized, well, every Indian was like this, but then there were people who said, well, all Indians are. I didn't say it. There were people who said it in this country.
No, it happens. I mean, like you're saying, it happens today. It happens all the time.
Yeah. So I'm not saying anything other than I understand what happened with the Midianite experience. Interestingly, it's very similar in the sense that these are nomadic peoples who probably, again, it varied between group to group, whether or not these people were people that you trusted, did business with, were they going to kill you? I mean, all of these issues.
But also, Rabbi,
there are Bedouin tribes people, folks. I want you to know that are the main drug smugglers that smuggle drugs into Israel across the borders from Egypt and Jordan. I mean, they know how to go across the desert and they can get through, and they do it. So,
but when the Midianites attacked us, the Hebrews, this was many, many, many years later than what we're talking about today.
yes,
Correct?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. But
So
the Midianites,
the
Midianites are also part of but they are it does seem like there is a problem, folks. There is a problem with the Midianites, and it actually is even in the book of Numbers, because it says that at Baal Peor the Midianites engaged in this idol worshiping and this problem with the Israelites. So it's even in the Torah. So now we get to this wonderful part of what happens after that, which is they marched from the mountain of the Lord a distance of 3 days. The Ark of the Covenant of the Lord traveled in front of them on that 3 days journey to seek out a resting place for them. Now, was it at the front? No, because we just read it's not in the front, but it is leading them. It is there is a sense that it is leading them. So maybe not the front, but it is in the front in the sense that it is their guide. And as it's moving, they're following, they're moving. As long as it's moving, they're moving. And it says the Lord's cloud kept above them day by day as they moved on from camp. And now here's the line. Vayehi bin soah Aaron vayomer Moshe, Kuma Adonai ve'afutzu oivecha ve'anusu misanecha mipanecha. These are the words that we say whenever we open up the ark, when we take out the Torah. When the ark was to set out, Moses would say, "Advance, O Lord, may your enemies be scattered and may your foes flee before you." And that's the words that we say. Vayehi bin soah Aaron. When the ark was set out, when the ark was opened, or when the ark was on the move. Now, of course, our ark is not on the move, but we open the ark. When we say those words, we say Vayehi bin soah. We repeat those words. And so when the ark was moving, when the ark was on the move, Moses would say, and that's what it says, Moses would say, "O Lord, may your enemies be scattered." So it's like Moses's prayer when the ark is moved. And then this other phrase, which is also part of, so this is part of our synagogue service for thousands of years. This line, Uvanucha Yomar Shuva Adonai. And when it halted, he would say, "Return, O Lord, you who are Israel's myriads of thousands." And this is, again, the numbers are its power. It's not, the focus is not on the fact that there's thousands of Jews, but that God is a force to be reckoned with. You are our force, God. And that's Uvanucha. That's the phrase that we have here. So both of those are in our liturgy. Now, we're a little bit behind, as Mike said, but we are going to get through this, because what happens now is this scene of the Israelites messing up big time. The people took to complaining bitterly before the Lord. The Lord heard and was incensed. A fire of the Lord broke out against them, ravaging the outskirts of the camp. The people cried out to Moses. Moses prayed to the Lord, and the fire died down. So the people complained. Doesn't say exactly what was said, but a fire starts, and Moses prays, and the fire stops. The place was called Taverah because a fire of the Lord had broken out against them. So that is the word Taverah, which means a fire. Kivara. So a fire broke out. So the place is called the fireplace. And then it says Beha'asaf Suf, which they translate as riffraff, which still has that sound of an onomatopoeia. Asaf Suf in Hebrew is an onomatopoeia. Riffraff is an onomatopoeia for the same thing. A group of rabble-rousers, a group of people who are making noise, and not a good kind of noise. In their midst, they felt a gluttonous craving. And then the Israelites wept and said, "If only we had meat to eat. We remember the fish that we used to eat for free in Egypt, and the cucumbers and the melons, the leeks, the onions and the garlic. Now our gullets are shriveled. There's nothing at all, nothing but this manna to look to. And so here we read about the manna back earlier in Exodus. We read about this great food that they get that sustains them, that, again, according to the Midrash, tastes like anything that they wanted to have. They got to gather a double portion of it on Friday so that they didn't have to gather it on Shabbos. They couldn't gather it on Shabbos. And here we actually have a little description of it that we don't have exactly before. The manna was like coriander seed, and in color, it was like bdellium. Bdellium is a crystal. It's a precious jewel. It's a stone. So its color looks like that. It wasn't necessarily a jewel, but it looked like kind of crystal-like. And it says it's like coriander seed. Is that the way it tasted, or the way it, like the texture of it? Again, what was it? We don't know. Some people say it's a spore. Some people say it was an insect. Some people say it was some kind of, something that was gathered around the morning dew, because it says the people would go about it and gather it, grind it between millstones, or pound it in a mortar, boil it in a pot, and make it into cakes. It tasted like rich cream. So the good thing is, it tastes really good. According to Midrash, it tastes like anything you want it to taste like. But the people were sick and tired of it. Oh, and here's the line. When the dew fell on the camp at night, the manna would fall upon it. So that's why it seems like it's either some kind of spore or some kind of insect that is a protein source, is a nutrient, is something that can sustain the people, but it's miraculous. And so that's where we get this really good description of the manna. It's a more comprehensive description of it than we got earlier in Exodus. When Moses heard the people weeping, every clan apart, each person at the entrance of the tent. The Lord was very angry, and Moses was distressed. And Moses said to the Lord, "Why have you dealt ill with your servant? And why have I not enjoyed your favor, that you have laid the burden of all this people upon me?" And so here Moses turns to God and say, "Why did you give me this responsibility?" So it says God's mad. Moses knows that. And in this part of the Torah, he seems to preemptively say to God, "Why did you do this to me? Why did you give me this responsibility?" And he says, "Did I conceive all this people? Did I bear them, that you should say to me, carry them in your bosom as a nurse carries an infant to the land that you promised on oath to their fathers? Did I give birth to these people? Did I tell them that they're going to come to the land of their fathers? Where am I to give meat to all this people when they whine before me and say, 'Give us meat to eat'? I cannot carry all this people by myself, for it is too much for me." And so there you can see God, I can't do it. If you would deal thus with me, kill me rather, I beg you, and let me see no more of my wretchedness. And so Moses goes so far to say, "I'd rather die. I cannot deal with this anymore." This is not the Moses leadership that we've grown accustomed to. He really does seem to have given up at this point. And again, this is a year and a half later. This is not 38 years later when he strikes the rock. This is now, or whatever. I mean, this is that's not 38 years later either, but it's not even years later. It's a year later. He is a year out now saying, I'm done. So here's what God says. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Gather me 70 of Israel's elders, whom you have experienced as elders and officers of the people, and bring them to the tent of meeting, and let them take their place there with you." So what does Moses say? Oh, what does God say to Moses? "Okay, you know what, Moses, you don't want to deal with it? Bring these guys to me. We're going to share this responsibility. I will come down and speak with you there, and I will draw upon the spirit that is on you and put it on them, and they shall share the burden of the people with you, and you should not bear it alone." And so Moses, again, he's not just dealing with the fact that the people are hungry and that he has to deal with it. Now God actually says, I will come up with a solution for you, Moses, for you, not for the people, but I'm going to take care of you. Say to the people, purify yourselves for tomorrow, and you shall eat meat. For you have kept whining before the Lord and saying, if only we had meat to eat. Indeed, we were better off in Egypt. Now, they did say that. The Lord will give you meat, and you shall eat. And you shall not eat one day, or no, not two, not even 5 days, or 10 or 20, but a whole month, until it comes out of your nostrils and becomes loathsome to you. For you have rejected the Lord who is among you by whining before him and saying, oh, why did we ever leave Egypt? So God says they'll have it. They'll have it, and they'll get so sick of it. And now Moses says to God, Moses said, the people who are with me number 600,000 men. Yet you say I'll give them enough meat for them to eat for a whole month. God, where's this meat coming from? Come on, God, there's 600,000 men. There's millions of people here. How are you going to provide for everybody enough meat for a whole month? He says, could enough flocks or herds be slaughtered to suffice them? Or could all the fish of the sea be gathered for them to suffice them? Where's this food coming from? And God said, is there a limit to the Lord's power? You shall soon see whether or what I have said happens to you or not. And so God seems to lose it a little bit with Moses here, because Moses isn't saying the people should have meat. He's not saying they're right. He's not saying the people have a point. He's saying, God, what are you going to do? And so he actually doubts God's power. He's not doubting that. He's not saying the people deserve it. He didn't say that. But he did doubt God's power at this point. That's what he said. And God says, do you think there's a limit? You've seen all the plagues I just did. So it says, Moses went out and reported the words of the Lord to the people. He gathered 70 of the people's elders and stationed them around the tent. Then the Lord came down in a cloud and spoke to him. He drew upon the spirit that was on him and put it on the 70 elders. And when the spirit rested upon them, they spoke in ecstasy, but did not continue. So those 70 elders, it's got the spirit that was on Moses now gets put on the 70 elders. So what's interesting about that is it seems as though Moses lost either all or part of what he had, and it gets put on the 70 people. So Moses gets what he wants, except he loses something in the process. He loses God's spirit, or at least part of it, if not all of it. 2 men, one named Eldad and the other Medad, had remained in camp, yet the spirit rested upon them. They were among those recorded, but they had not gone yet out to the tent, and they spoke in ecstasy in the camp. So these 2 guys, Eldad and Medad, have the Holy Spirit on them. That's what it is, the Ruach, the Spirit. They have it. Now, based on what happened to Nadav and Abihu, you're thinking, this is not going to end well. But watch what happens. A youth ran out and told Moses, saying, Eldad and Medad are acting the prophet in the camp. And the Joshua, the son of Nun, right? Moses' attendant from his youth, spoke up and said, my Lord Moses, restrain them. So Eldad and Medad are out there speaking like prophets, which is what Moses essentially is going to have happen once he says, I can't do it all. Can't do this prophet leading business. And Moses said to Joshua, are you wrought on my account? Would that all the Lord's people were prophets, that the Lord put his spirit on them. And that famous phrase, would all the Lord's people be prophets? I wish everybody was a prophet. I don't need to be the only prophet. Hell, I'd love everybody to be a prophet. Joshua, what are you worried about? That's what he says. What are you worried about, Joshua? Are you serious? You're jealous for me? Are you jealous for yourself? What do you care? Let everybody do it. As long as they're speaking on behalf of God, I don't have an issue with it. And that's what he said to him. Would all the Lord's people be prophets? So Moses here on one hand is saying, look, I can't do it all. I can't deal with it. And what he does say, though, is if they are going to do it, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the people having some of this power. Moses then re-entered the camp together with the elders of Israel. A wind from the Lord started up, swept quail from the sea, and strewed them over the camp, about a day's journey on this side and about a day's journey on that side, all around the camp. And this is the Slav. That's what it's called in Hebrew, the Slav, the quail. Which, interestingly enough, we have in California. I just saw one yesterday walking around in my front yard.
We have in our backyard all the time.
He's quail. It's our state bird, actually.
We named ours Dan and Danny.
Quail, Dan Quail.
Yeah.
About a day's journey on this side, a day's journey. It's huge. Some 2 cubits deep on the ground. Right? That's like 3 feet of quail. The people set about gathering the quail all that day and night and all the next day. Even he who gathered least had 10 homers, and they spread them out all around the camp. That's a lot of food, a lot of meat. And it says the meat was still between their teeth, nor yet chewed, when the anger of the Lord blazed forth against the people, and the Lord struck the people with a very severe plague. So the answer is, be careful what you ask for, especially when you're asking for it in such a way that really is going to upset God. Tell God you want to go back to Egypt? That's insanity. The place was named Kivrot Hatava because the people who had the craving were buried there. And that's what it says. There was a burial for the people. That's what the word Kivrot means. It means the graves of Hatava, which means the graves of craving. Craving graves. It's kind of a scary name. Craving graves. That's what it means. Graves of craving. Craving graves. That's the name of it. And the people set out for Kivrot Hatava for Hatzerot. This is their next stop. So they made one stop, another stop. They're at Hatzerot.
But we don't really know how long between camps.
No.
Right.
We don't know how long they were. The Torah says in kind of a vague way, sometimes it was a few days, sometimes it was a few months, sometimes it was a year. Now, this is the final chapter, chapter 12. And we are going to end with this, which is, we've read 2 instances in the last portion of the people, in the last chapter, of people screwing up. Taverah, where there was a fire, and now we had Kivrot Hatava in the wilderness. And now we have this very famous story we're going to finish with today. Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Cushite woman he had married. He married a Cushite woman, which again seems redundant. But again, if those are the words that they spoke, then that's why he said it. That's why the Torah recounts it. They spoke about a Cushite woman. He said he married a Cushite woman. Is this Zipporah? Is this the same Zipporah we just read about? Or is this another woman that he married? They said, has the Lord spoken only through Moses? Has he not spoken through us as well? And the Lord heard it. So they actually say 2 things. They talk about Moses' Cushite wife. And again, Cushite is another word for black, but it's also a land. It's Africa. Were Midianites also sometimes Cushites? Were they also sometimes black Bedouin? It's possible. There are black Bedouin tribes to this day. Is it possible that Zipporah was black? We don't know. Or was this another wife that he took? But they also say, has the Lord only spoken through Moses? Has he not spoken through us as well? And the Lord heard it. Now, we oftentimes just read this portion out of context and we don't read what just happened, which is that Moses literally just said to God, I don't want this burden anymore. And what's interesting is that he never had the burden all by himself. Aaron and Miriam are there too. But Moses also now seems to have given a opening for this to have happened to some extent. To some extent, he opened this up by saying, I don't want to have all this burden. Well, look what happens now. Moses was a very humble man, more so than any man on earth. Suddenly, the Lord called to Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, come out, you three, to the tent of meeting. So the three of them went out. The Lord came down in a pillar of clouds, stopped at the entrance of the tent, and called out, Aaron and Miriam. And the two of them came forward. And he said, hear these my words. When a prophet of the Lord arises among you, I make myself known to him in a vision. I speak with him in a dream. Not so with my servant Moses. He is trusted throughout my household, which, by the way, is a weird word for God. Who's God's household? But it seems like God's inner circle. Pay all el pay. With him I speak mouth to mouth, plainly and not in riddles. And he beholds the likeness of the Lord, which again is different from seeing God face to face necessarily, but it's definitely more than what most people have. I talk to Moses like I don't talk to anybody else. How then did you not shrink from speaking against my servant Moses? And so here God defends Moses and says, who are you to talk about Moses this way? His own brother and sister. Still incensed with him, the Lord departed. So as the cloud withdrew from the tent, there was Miriam stricken with snow white scales. When Aaron turned toward Miriam, he saw that she was stricken with scales. So Aaron looks over, sees Miriam, and sees that his sister has now been turned white. It's the tsarat. It's this disease, the skin disease that we read about, which is why we equate this, that the disease is somehow triggered by speaking bad against people, by gossip, lashon hara, because Miriam does it and she gets struck by it. And again, some people say it's a cognate of the words motzei shem ra. Motzara is a code word for finding bad words. Motzei shem ra means saying bad things or finding bad things about people. Folks, Miriam gets punished. What about Aaron? What about Aaron?
Again, Aaron, is the chosen one.
How does Aaron get away with this again? Aaron got away with it. He made the golden calf. He just spoke out against his brother, and he doesn't get punished. And Aaron says to Moses, oh, my Lord, account not to us the sin which we committed in our folly. He doesn't say which she did, which she committed. He recognizes that he did it.
But he kind of got, when his two sons died, maybe that's what they're talking about.
I guess, but then he got punished in advance for something he does now. It doesn't make sense.
God works in mysterious ways.
God works in really mysterious ways because Aaron doesn't ever seem to get punished directly. And this one's blatant because his sister gets changed right in front of him and she seems to do the exact same thing. Now, again, the rabbis in the Midrash say, well, Aaron was kind of along for the ride. It was actually Miriam that said it and Aaron was there, didn't stop her, but didn't actually say it, which is why this happens. And what seems to lead to that possible interpretation is that Aaron is the one who speaks up. Miriam doesn't say anything. Aaron says, don't let this happen to her. Let her not be as one dead who emerges from her mother's womb with half his flesh, his mother's womb with half his flesh eaten away. So don't let her be like that kind of guy. So Moses cried out to the Lord saying, El na rafana la. Oh God, please God, heal her. Elna, please God, please heal her. That's a better translation for it. Elna, please God, Rafan Allah, please heal her.
And we say that just about every Friday night now.
That's why it's a beautiful prayer because it's the oldest.
Beautiful.
It's the oldest prayer for healing. It's also a beautiful rhyme. Elna, Rafan Allah.
I think that's one of Mary's favorites.
Yeah. It's a beautiful, beautiful mantra. It's 5 words in Hebrew, and each one is it's like a mantra. Elna Rafanala, Elna Rafanala. And it works really well for a woman. Elna Rafana Lo would be for him. Oh God, please heal her. Please heal him, which I've said before. Elna Rafana Lo, but it doesn't rhyme as well as Elna Rafana La. The la at the end of each sound, of each of those sounds, every one of the words has at the end, with the exception of El, which is God. El na, so God, na, Rafa, na, la. Each one ends with a. So it's a very poetic rhyme. And it's the oldest prayer for healing that we have. And the Lord said to Moses, if her father spat in her face, would she not bear her shame for 7 days? Let her be shut out of camp for 7 days, and then let her be readmitted. So there's going to be a punishment. The punishment's for 7 days. She disrespected you. She disrespected the system, if you will. There's got to be a consequence. I can't heal her right away. Let people think about it for 7 days. And maybe, by the way, because she's a leader, she has a responsibility, just like you, just like Aaron, your brother. You guys are the big three, and you did not think about what's going to happen when you cause this whole system of leadership to somehow be called into question. It all goes south now in these portions, the leadership, because we're going to see what happens in Korach when Moses' cousin Korach leads a revolt. We're going to see what happens when the leadership challenge happens, and it happens within Moses' own family. And this is the way it ends. So Miriam was shut out of camp for 7 days, and the people did not march on until Miriam was readmitted. And after that, the people set out for Hatzerot, and they encamped in the wilderness of Paran. And so this is the next stage, if you will, from Hatzerot to Paran. And what happened at Hatzerot was this horrible scene of Moses' own family essentially undermining him. But it all goes back to, maybe did Moses also set an opening by saying to God, I can't deal with this. I can't have this burden anymore. And did Moses in that moment essentially start a process of letting go and letting this stuff fall apart? I don't know. I know it's probably not a good idea to blame Moses. He did his best. He's only a man. But there is something in me, at least when I'm reading it this year, where I'm wondering, did he let this get out of hand? Did he provide the opening by saying to God, I can't deal with this? And God essentially said, okay, I'm taking at least some of this and giving it to other people, if not all of it. What did Moses lose in that moment when the Spirit was drawn out of him and put on the elders? You read about it. I mean, you just read it. You just read it. Something happened in that moment that Moses asked for to some extent. I mean, not to some extent, he did ask for it. And it creates something, it puts into motion something that we deal with for the next portions. For Shlach Lecha, for Korach, all the way through there, we're dealing with challenges to Moses' leadership. From his family that we just saw, to the leaders of the tribes that we have in this one, these spies that go out in this next portion that come back and create havoc and set into motion the next 40 years of.
But you know what's strange to me that I'm looking at this year is that it took to get to Numbers chapter 12 to get Aaron and Miriam to say, hey, I don't like your wife. You know, why did this not happen, years ago?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Maybe it wasn't the same wife.
That's the one.
Right. That's what I'm going at.
Yeah. So there's that
it wasn't the same wife.
Of it is it a different woman? And were they really protecting Zipporah, right? That's a possibility.
Right. That's where I guess where I was going.
There's a possibility. But there does seem to be this issue, which is that they say that it's about the Cushite wife, but that's not what they really say, which is why the Torah says, has God only spoken through Moses? So it's not really about the Cushite wife. That's the thing that's kind of funny about it, is that the Torah basically shows us that what the people say is their initial challenge isn't really what they're really upset about. It's the fact that they're not getting credit for that they don't want to share the limelight. And is that really, again, what's really the problem is that they want the attention. What Moses does seem to say is, I don't want the attention. And that's why it says in this portion, he's the humblest of everybody, which is why, again, we have the tradition that's why God chose him, was because of his humility, because he didn't want to have the spotlight. And it is a Jewish tradition to understand that leadership to some extent must come with a sense of humility and with a sense of, I don't want to have the spotlight. And so that this is really an interesting balance that people have, which is number one, do leaders lead by example? Do they lead by having some role in the public? I mean, believe me, I've dealt with this my whole life, and I've watched it in my father. I've watched it and tried to check it with myself. It's one of the reasons why when we did the rally, 2 weeks ago for Israel, I didn't do it by myself. First of all, I wanted to have as many people there as possible. So I had the other rabbis speak there. Koni spoke there longer than I did. I definitely didn't hog the spotlight, and I didn't, and they all gave me credit. They all said this wouldn't have happened unless Mark had asked for it to happen. So I'm not saying that I didn't get recognized. I didn't do it to be recognized, but I also knew that if this is going to be successful, these other rabbis need to also be participants in it, and they need to, and it needs to be a united effort. It's not going to be successful if I just do it.
But also, I know we've discussed it many times over the years that Moses is not perfect, and that's a good rule amongst us, that we can learn that not everybody is perfect.
No,
and we do have
even Moses, and even Moses is going to screw up. But I think it's like this idea that Moses really does look at it and say, look, if we're going to be successful, we're going to have to balance, and we're going to have roles for leaders within the synagogue. And again, synagogues have that issue. Companies have that issue. Every group, essentially where there's a dynamic of leadership at stake, is going to have that issue, which is how much does the leader lead, and how much by being there all the time, and how much does the leader really do a good job by animating other people. And that line, which is the line that, like, I always think about, everybody should be a leader. Let everybody be a teacher. I don't care if I do a good job as a rabbi. To me, my job is most effective when I make myself redundant. If everybody knows the Torah and I don't have to be there to teach it, I'm very okay with that, because that means that everybody learned it well enough to be a teacher. And so to me, that's the highest level of success is when one of your students becomes a rabbi. So when I have kids, and my kids are, the Hebrew school kids that I've had are still a little too young, but when they become teachers themselves, or they become rabbis, I haven't had exactly a kid that I've mentored since they've been in Hebrew school. But when that happens, and I hope to God it happens one day, before I get too old, before I become a doddering fool, I would love for there to be somebody. And again, I think it's a great testament to a rabbi if they raise up students who are able to teach. Look, to become a rabbi today is much harder to some extent than it used to be, in the sense that, number one, it's not a super high paying job. It's not a bad paying job, but it's not a super high paying job. The other issue is that it comes with responsibilities that are still, to some extent in today's world, being redefined. And I think that there's a real question of what those responsibilities are going to be like. And quite frankly, for the amount of schooling that it requires, the pay isn't commensurate with the amount of education that you have to do. Because if you have to do 5 or 6 years after graduate school, after you graduate, so if you have to essentially be 30 when you finish, man, that's you're giving up some prime years of education. And it was the biggest thing for me when I sat down with my rabbi, who was my mentor, Rabbi Rothbaum, and Adad Ariel. When I sat down with him, I said to him, look, I don't know whether I want to. I was 22, and I said 2022. I said, I don't know if I want to go back to school for 5 or 6 years. I don't know. I just finished college a year ago. I don't know that I want to go back to college. I didn't want to get a PhD. Why would I now go back? Maybe PhD was going to take me 7 years. This was going to take me 5 to 6 years. I said, I just told my professor, one of the greatest professors in biblical professors in the country, Richard Friedman, I don't want to spend 7 years in graduate school. Why would I now say I'm going to spend 5 to 6 years in rabbinical school? And he said, what? 5 or 6 years from now, you're going to be 5 or 6 years older. Are you going to be a rabbi or are you not going to be a rabbi? That's your question. It's not a question of 5 or 6 years, because in 5 or 6 years, you'll either accomplish this goal or you won't. And so if you want to, then then you're going to do it. But of course,
I can understand why, I'm not you, Rabbi Mark, but I can understand why some rabbis would say, hey, I don't want this anymore. There's a lot of pressure on rabbis, what they have to do, in a synagogue. I can understand that. I can understand what Moses was saying.
And because to some extent, the job never ends, which I learned early on. There's never a day that you're finished and you never complete your work. But the other issue is that today, because the rabbinic job has become a little bit more fluid, there are a lot of people that aren't going to synagogues. That's the other thing, is a lot of rabbis now are working in schools. They're working in institutions. They're what they call institutional rabbis. They're attached to a JCC or they're attached to a Hillel. But there are a lot of people that are kind of holding off going into congregations because the roles are shifting and are so fluid now that look, I never thought I'd be a congregational rabbi. I've told people this before. When I came out of rabbinical school, I went right to Heschel. I went right to a day school, which is where I thought I would go. I did not thought that congregational work was going to be where I was going to be. And I will say that that's partly because I knew how hard it was. I knew that the expectations and the requirements were not something that I saw myself doing.
But we're sure glad you did.
Thanks. But there are, look, 21 years later, it worked out okay, but I definitely am not on the path that I thought I'd be on. But I love this community. I love this area. And I don't know how I could have, done the things that I did, but there's no question that if I had been in other parts of the country, other parts of Los Angeles, that I would have had more attention, but I never cared about it. I really, people always said, oh, you're like, I was in the bank yesterday and somebody said, I just read the article. I saw you, the bank teller said, I just saw you in the paper in the Signal for the Israel rally. And I said, oh yeah. I said, that was a good event, whatever, I explained why we did it a little bit, but I said, I didn't do it to get coverage, but, and I get it, I've been in the Signal a lot, but I didn't do it for that. And when I actually told the Signal not to write a story about it until after the fact. So I will tell you, you can't use that as a reason to do the job. And it really is a weird thing, because I always have to balance out whether because I don't really want the attention, but I know that if I don't, then no one's going to know about it. And so the only way you can get it is if you put it out there, and then it becomes a catch-22. Is it really about you? Which is fine, which is why I told them, don't use a picture. I actually told the Signal, don't use a picture of me. And they didn't. They used 3 pictures and none of them were of me. And I'm fine with that. I was not okay with it. I told them not to use a picture because I didn't want this to be about me. If speaking out about Israel is my thing, then we've lost a huge opportunity, because people know where I stand. It's not about me saying we have to stand strong with Israel. It's about the kid who's 17 years old getting pressure from his high school friends and the people online that are telling him that Israel is an apartheid state. Those are the kids that got to stand up and be counted and be photographed, not me. Everybody knows where I stand. It's real important for those people to be out there. And that's why I say it's much more important for you guys to be out there and letting people know than it is for me. I will say, as much as I say that, it's actually not true, because there's a lot of rabbis who've been really weak on this. And so I actually feel within my own group that sometimes I have to make a lot of noise, but that's too bad. And I don't, but that's within my group. It's not within, I don't want to be in the Signal. That's not my group. My group is telling other rabbis, you cannot abdicate your role. I know you have a problem with Israel's this or that, but you must be strong with Israel right now. You cannot be weak.
Okay,
keep-
we'll see. We have to leave. They're kicking us out of the
Go,
room.
go, everybody. Listen, everybody stay strong. And again, thank you everybody for being here tonight.
All
Good
right.
night. Thanks,
Great
Rabbi.
class,
I want
Rabbi. Great
I want
class.
everybody should be a prophet. Thank you, everybody.